All right. Hi, everybody. This is Emily Motter from Hospitality, Minnesota. Thank you all for being here for our cash flow webinar with David Scott Peters. I've got a couple housekeeping notes for everybody, and then we'll get rolling. So first things first, I just want to let everybody know of an upcoming webinar that we have. You'll see an invite coming out from us on Monday. We'll be doing a webinar about the CARES Act. So the cash flow lessons that you'll learn today will be great advice uh, leading into that webinar on Monday. Today's webinar will be about 90 minutes with the option to go a little longer if we've got more questions. So plan to be here for about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And then a couple things I want to point out to everybody. Down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button and a chat button. So if you want to ask a question that you want to make sure gets covered today, you want to type it in that Q&A field. So you'll want to hit that button, a box will pop up. You can type your question in there, and then David will answer your question as he can. And then if you just have general things that you want to say, like if you want to say hi to everybody, that's what our chat is for. So for those of you that are here, just to make sure that we're using the chat, why don't you go ahead and just type your name and your business in there so that we know where everybody's coming from. And then while we're doing that, I'll kick it over to Liz Raymer, who has a few more things to say.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, this is Liz Raymer. I'm the CEO of Hospitality Minnesota, and I welcome you to this webinar featuring hospitality business expert David Scott Peters. We were very fortunate to have David Scott serve as our closing conference and expo speaker last October, and we're pleased to have him return today to share his expertise with us as our industry faces its biggest challenge in keeping cash flow going during this crisis. Hospitality Minnesota is doing everything possible to advocate for you on both state and national levels for Minnesota's hospitality businesses, so they not only survive the crisis, but are in the best position possible to come back quickly. So please know we hear you and we're here for you in the weeks and months ahead. So thanks to Emily for organizing today's webinar, and thanks very much to David Scott Peters for providing all of us with some extremely valuable information you can put to good work in your hospitality businesses today. Over to you, David Scott.
Okay, everybody, are you ready? I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to take the next 90 minutes, possibly longer, depending on the questions you have, to kind of put everything into perspective of what's going on with the pandemic as far as you and your business. How do we decide whether or not we should have stayed open, whether we should stay open, whether we should take advantage of the PPP money? Make sure you're on that webinar. Things change literally day by day by day. And for the most part, many of us right now, we've made a huge change in our business. We've made a pivot. We'll talk about that. And you're probably on this webinar because you're one of those restaurants, you're one of those hotels, you're one of the campgrounds, you're a resort, you're somebody in the hospitality industry that has learned to pivot, that said, I have to reinvent myself in order to make it through this. And we don't know how long it's going to be. We know we got another month, but would it be surprising to be another, right? So we really have to figure out whether we've got the money to be able to survive this. And when we come out of this, that we're better than we were when we started. Meaning this is an opportunity. If I had given this webinar to you 2 weeks ago, there was a gray cloud, there was a depression, there was an all out, our industry was on fire. And it would have been, hey, let's decide if we're going to make it. And then the second week went through and we started to see, unfortunately, many of our peers decide not to make it or couldn't because we're a cash flow business, right? Sales were here and then overnight that we were restricted in what we could do. And I'm going to talk about that. But we had a payroll that was high on sales that dropped to the floor. And for many restaurants, many resorts, campgrounds, hotels, we may not have had the cash in our back pocket or our bank account to be able to survive that swing. And so all of a sudden we're starting to and figure out that the one lesson I learned many, many years ago, the most important lesson is that profits don't pay your bills, cash does. And now all of a sudden we've got to look at our asset called cash, our bank account, and say, how do I make that last? How do I get out of this that I don't dig a hole that is so large that I can't dig out, right? What can we do? Now, I will tell you, while I understand, and I've already, again, spoke as keynote for your organization, your last show, I get that we are all hospitality. Please know that my examples are restaurants. Why? Because I'm a restaurant guy. But the things I'm sharing with you, I could help a tire retail store. They are not business specific. This is pure cash flow. I'm just using restaurants because that's what I've built my career on, is specific restaurants. But hospitality, there's really no difference. And again, any business. So make sure that you strap in there and say, ready, we're ready to go. Now, I will remind you, again, as Emily said, for those of you who are logging in now, if you've got some questions, put them in the question control box on your Zoom webinar control panel, and either Emily or I will see it and we will answer it. She'll either type the answer while I'm speaking, or if I don't look over and see it, she may interrupt me. So this is your time. Do not save your questions for the end, although I will provide question and answer time at the end. If you don't understand something, you can't see something when I bring a spreadsheet up, you want me to repeat something, please, this is your time. Because I don't want this to be a waste of time. I want this to be the best 90 minutes you spend when it comes to reinventing yourself and deciding, how do I pivot and make it through this crisis? So again, let's get started here. We're talking about creating your cash flow to ride out the pandemic, right? That's the purpose of this. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I grew up my family's restaurant and catering business back in Linwood, New Jersey, where I worked for the toughest manager I know. If anybody ever worked for your mom, you sucks. Now, I hated every minute of it. Why? Because I was a teenager and my mom rode my sister and I twice as hard as everybody else. And, she said there'd be no favoritism. While I didn't like it, she did me a favor. Every job I had after, I elevated very quickly because I had a work ethic like nobody else around me. So she did me a favor. Now, payback's a bitch. She works for me now, but that's a whole nother story. I then worked for a company called Coyote Springs Brewing Company Cafe in the early 90s when brew pubs were opening one a week. We're seeing that resurgence now. But back then, we didn't care about food and hospitality. We were beer geeks. And the first location we had was a cash cow here in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a cash cow, hand over fist money. Our second location was a boat, a hole in water in which you throw money. And this is where I learned the lesson of profits don't pay your bills, cash does. Because we put ourselves in terrible situation. Our downtown location was not in the right spot at the time. There was not enough business for it. There was event traffic. If anybody here, next to an arena or a baseball field or football field, and all of a sudden you say, hey, wait a second, there's nobody coming back to my restaurant after the game. They lost the game. And so I know that feeling, but we didn't have residents down there and so on. So I had to learn to put systems in place to control cash, because there were times where literally I was given cash flow training this way. Hey, the owner said to me, my family and I are going to Ireland to tour Guinness. You're going to pay the bills. And I literally had to call them and say, while they're in Ireland, say, we're not going to make payroll and make a cash call to investors. Well, what does it feel like today? We don't have enough money. We're making a cash call. We're hoping that the PPP money is obtained and we can get it. We hope the other SBA loan is obtainable and go through all the things. Please make sure you join Hospitality Minnesota. I believe it is on Monday for that CARES Act webinar. It's a must because the information changes. Literally, last week to this week, there's a brand new application for the PPP. So make sure you do that. Now, I took those skill sets. Later, I went to a franchisor called Famous Sam's, a 30-unit restaurant sports bar chain here in Arizona. And I went in as director of operations. We opened 8 stores. I brought on a new operations team. I redid the training program. Guys about the company wanted to take it public. In under a year, they damn near bankrupted the company. Now, as upper management took off, I said, I'm not sitting on this sinking ship. So I went and left and went to Scottsdale Culinary Institute to teach management, human resources, wines, and spirits. So I'm not a chef guy. I have 0 knife skills. I'm horrendous in the kitchen. But do know, while I can't cook, I can run any of your kitchens with the right systems in place. I can order based off par levels and budgets. I can schedule off of staffing guides and budgets. I can open and close every station off of opening and closing side work checklists. I can manage any kitchen because there are systems. So do know, as we go through this pandemic and we see some of our peers that did not make it to the first 2 weeks, right? You saw it on social media. If you're friends with anybody on LinkedIn or Facebook as old timers like me, We saw the videos of, we gave it our best shot. We have to close either until the pandemic is over or forever. And it crushed me. I know it crushed you. I know it, because that's our family, hospitality. And we sit there and say, okay, wait a second. That means when we get out the other side of this pandemic, we can't go back to not taking inventory, not having recipe cost cards, not having budgets, not having training systems, not scheduling on budget. So for many of us, this is an opportunity for us to restart, to cut the dead weight and to restart. And that's what we have to look at it as glass half full, that part of this is a gift for us, that we make it through here. We have the opportunity to truly come out the other side better. Now, what I was teaching, I was consulting, and the minority shareholders of Famous Sam's were one of my clients, and they actually became the majority shareholders of Famous Sam's and asked me to come back. And I kept saying, no, no, no. And it's about 2 months before my first child was born. I said, okay. And I walked into a disaster. I was the chief operating officer, and my job, walking into the company, was damn near bankrupt, should have been bankrupt. I was told, turn the company around and sell it in 5 years. I missed that goal by 3 months. See, I know what it is to be an independent operator. I know what makes a chain successful. It's my job to give you the same systems and tools that chains use without losing your independence. We love our guests. We love our employees. But we are going to do what they do well, and that's make money. Well, I'm going to throw that out the window. Right now, I don't really care if you make money during this pandemic. This is about survival. This is about cash. So I'm also going to throw out the window of all the things that I preach, systems and all these things that as an owner, I want you to work on your business, not in your business. Heck, right now you're rolling up your sleeves. If you're in a hotel, if you've got to clean rooms, you're cleaning rooms. If you're in a restaurant, you've got to cook burgers and you're cooking burgers. If you're at a campground and you've got to work the reservation book or whatever it may be, you've got to do things. Whatever it takes to survive, that's what we're doing right now. So all the things that I preach, I kind of throw out the back, except for now, we're taking budget down to a 12-week cash flow budget that we can say, can we make it? Are these good decisions we're making? Now, about 2003, I started coaching independent restaurants. I started a company that was a restaurant training coach company, and we built an online software package that handled every aspect of your business. Well, this past June 2019, my business partner and a group of users bought me out. And that's when I started this company, davidscottpeters.com, Take Action Enterprises, LLC, to go back to my roots of truly just worrying about giving you the tools to be successful, to give you the tools to be a leader in your business, to have managers be able to do the work. But today, again, throw it all out the window. All I care about is giving you the tools to be able to what? Say, take it. Now, I'm going to give you a side note. You want to stick to the end. If you can't, I get it. We are recording this. And what we're going to be doing is at the end, I'm going to email probably later today, if not tomorrow morning, because what I've got to do is compile or take this video. I've got to do a couple tweaks with it and send it up to the internet. Well, whatever time that takes, sometimes it's a day. The internet's kind of crazy today. If you had, or this week or 3 weeks, everybody's on it. So we've had some challenges, but if I get that done later today, if not tomorrow morning, and I'm on Pacific Standard Time, so you're 2 hours later, you're going to get an email with a login to my website, davidscottpeters.com, with a temporary password that you can change. In there will be the replay of this webinar. There will be a video of how to write a budget for 12 months or 13 periods. There will be a Budget Builder MVP, which is that spreadsheet solution, Google Sheets. So you need to have a Gmail address or an account that is assigned to a Gmail address, and you'll just copy it over and it is yours to use. But I've created my version that I've added at the bottom to take it and create a Budget Builder MVP 12-week cash flow version. And that's the one we're going to be playing with here. But the key is you're going to have all this stuff. So when you come out the other side, you're going to be able to understand budgeting, creating your plan for success when it comes to normal operating, whatever normal is going to look like. Right now, we got to worry about 12 weeks. So make sure you look for your email. If you don't see it by tomorrow afternoon, check your spam folder, your junk folder. It may be there. Otherwise, email me at david@davidscottpeters.com and I'll take care of you. All right. So now, what's our new reality look for? Well, or look like? We know that our new reality was we're no longer allowing people to gather. And think how fast it changed. I mean, 3 weeks ago, what life was like. You could have large gatherings. We had people in our restaurants, and it was 250 in New York, and then it was 50, and then it was no more than 10. And then each state after state after state, the mandates came down and said, hey, you can only do delivery, curbside, and to go. Well, now all of a sudden, if you were a restaurant or and you were fighting the delivery apps, you had to embrace those. Fortunately for us, they were allowing free sign up and doing some free fees and things like that. You needed online ordering, and we didn't have time for a 90-day setup. So you need to call your POS dealer and say, what attaches to my POS system real quick that you rep, that I can be up overnight so I can take payments and people can just come in and grab their stuff and go. If you hadn't been, if you played the I'm an older generation card, and we don't have an email list, and we don't do Facebook, and we don't do Instagram, we don't do Twitter or any other form of social media that your customer base is on, then you're in trouble, right? You all of a sudden have to jump in that arena. If you had been doing it forever, then you were in better space. But all of a sudden you needed, in the one time in this pandemic that you said advertising, that's where you're spending your money, because how the heck do they even know? Right? Between having all of the 4 major delivery apps on, because each world, I have one of them on my phone. I don't have all 4. We've got to find all the people possible to come in our door. Well, hopefully you're already past that. Hopefully you figured out to reduce your menu size, 10, 15, 20 items if you're a restaurant, so we can reduce the amount of product on our shelves, that it isn't wasted, spoiled, we lose it, that we can reduce the number of cooks we need in the kitchen, right? Like all of a sudden, and we can be great at what we do on a routine basis. Saves us money, reduces the money we can go out. We've hopefully reinvented ourselves, put meal replacement in, drop-off catering, or the big one right now is a grocerant, right? That's where you are turning your restaurant into a grocery store, whether it's delivery or they come in and they pick it up with their meal. Because we've got the broadline distributors of the world that are getting crushed as well. Imagine your restaurant got crushed. That's who they deal with, right? That's their customer base. And all of a sudden people aren't paying, they're shutting down. And they've contracted for all this food, right? Nobody ever talks about it on the news, drives me nuts, that when I was a kid, I'm 53 years old, so I'm OLD. When we'd go out to dinner, my family, it was once a week, and it was a big deal, even to McDonald's. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to McDonald's. Well, now as the years have gone by, 50% or more of each one of Americans spend 50% or more of their food dollar in a restaurant. And all of a sudden that was ripped away. That's the reason why the grocery stores don't have food. There's lots and lots of food. It's in Cisco and US Foods and Ben & Keith and all the other broadline distributors. And so they're trying to figure out how they sell product. They're trying to help you survive, because that's how they survive. And do know they've got contracted food coming in. There are deals, like they had to contract, just like everything. This is what we think we're going to do, and we're on a record year. Tell me you weren't on pace to have the best restaurant year, the best lodging year, the best campground year, the best resort year of your life. And overnight it changed. And so work with them, and we'll talk about that. Drop off catering, you reinvented yourself, right? At this point, we're at the end of week 3. And I'm making an assumption right now, you as at the end of week 3, you're the fighters. Now, as hospitality businesses, we are eternal optimists. We always think tomorrow's going to be better. We could be knee deep, right? Knee deep in the muck. And we're thinking, I can get out of this. Tomorrow's going to be better. Well, we had took some pretty heavy hits. So I think those of you who have survived through 3 weeks, you are the survivors. You are going to come out the other side. Yes, there is someone on this call that unfortunately maybe shouldn't have tried to fight the fight, but you are already having struggles before. This just magnified those struggles. But I will tell you, I've seen extremely profitable, successful restaurants that are doing their very best and struggling to keep their cash in the bank as long as possible, to keep as many people employed as possible. And so no matter where you fall, because there is one other group, and the ones we love to hate, right? We love you, and we feel very jealous. If you were a restaurant that had you already quick serve, you had to go, you had delivery, and you have a drive-through window, you're actually booming. Like, it is crazy to think that through all of this pandemic, that there is a segment in our industry that is booming, right? But either way, What's going to happen when we come out the other side, when you start to share those sales? We all have to be prepared. So now, here's our new reality. We have a reduction in sales. For some restaurants, again, there's booming, but the vast majority of us, if you are a full service restaurant, if you are fine dining, a steakhouse, seafood restaurant, like there's a good shot you have closed your doors until the end of the pandemic, because unless you reinvented yourself on what you provide. We laid off or fired a group of people, like a large number. Tell me a bartender in the United States that's working as a bartender. Like, it is sad. 2 weeks ago, we had 3.3 million people unemployed. Odds are that was hospitality. And then we're at 9.9 or 9.6 million. So just shy of 10 million people in 2 weeks are unemployed. Now, the restaurant business, hospitality and business, is the largest employer in the United States. Where do you think those people came from? Right? Now, some people talk about the unemployment is a safety net, and we've added the $600. And some people worry that they're going to be incentivized to not come back to work if this ends, because they actually make more money on unemployment. Well, let's put that aside right now. If you had a good company culture, if you were a great boss, and you had great training and great supervision, and people enjoyed coming back to work, going to work, they're coming back. Because the other side of this is, if they hold on too long, there won't be a job for them, right? There are right now 10 million people, additional people, unemployed. There's going to be lots of people who want those jobs. And so I would put that fear behind me. Now, the other part is, remember, we're cash flow based. So here we're sales high, right? And as long as sales keep coming in, even if they dip a little bit, we can make payroll, we can pay rent, we can pay the power bill, gas bill, everything behind. Well, the problem is we accrue bills when we're busy because we're very cash based. Now, all of a sudden the mandates came in, the new operating restrictions on running our business, sales dropped. I've seen restaurants drop 50%. I've seen them drop 25%. I've seen them drop 75% or worse. Again, depending on where you were, where your neighborhood is, if you've been doing social media, if you already done delivery apps, if you had a window, all these things. Well, no matter what that is, all of a sudden our sales drop, no matter what it is, and we have payroll that's high. We have food bills from when sales were high. And all of a sudden we have a small bank account, because as long as the money kept coming in, we just kept moving around, paying bills, come in, go out, come in, go out, come in, go out. And all of a sudden it was a shocker. Like, how do I make it? Like, I'm in deep trouble. Well, now we had to learn how to say, I may have to defer things. I don't have the cash backup. I may have to go to my landlord and say, landlord, based on our lease, I'm going to talk to my attorney, look at the lease, get some advice. I'm not going to be able to pay you this month. Maybe the next 2-3 months, depending on what the restrictions are on my lease and what the penalties look like. Hey, I'm going to hope for a bailout landlord, right? And we're seeing Congress come up with the PPP, the disaster one, the 2 different loans we have options for. Some has forgiveness, some don't. Again, if you don't listen to me, be on Hospitality Minnesota's webinar on Monday. It's a must. I don't care what you're doing, because what you learned this week is going to be different next week. And this is something we all need to do, no matter what. On a side note, apply for both the loans. There's been some misinformation out there that says you have to choose which one to apply for. No, it's not true. Apply for both loans. Nobody said you had to take them. If you get them, you can decide whether you want to take one or both of them. You just can't use the money for the same thing, and there are certain restrictions. Be on that call. And oh, by the way, whether it's forgivable or not, the interest rate is really small, and I think it's going to be for 30 years. So, I mean, it's truly money that can help you. But let's decide whether we even should take that money. Should we dig a bigger hole? Now, to start off, we've got to understand the purpose of budgeting. Well, most of us are a reactive management team. We get a P&L, we put it in our face, we flip to the back page, we find what our profit or loss is, we go, oh, crap, we put it on the desk, and we go, oh, well. And oh, by the way, when do you get that? 15 days, 30 days, 60, 90 days after your accountant, after the close of the period? It's too late. That's backwards. That's the past. No one on this call, no one on this webinar we can't change the past. So I need a budget. Now, a budget says, based on my past 12 months, I'm going to create a scenario that if I operate the same way the next 12 months, how much money I'm going to make or lose. And I look at it and I go, I'm not making enough. And I decide what systems are put in place to change that reality. Well, that's creating a proactive plan for success. Well, we're going to throw that out the window. The heck with 12 months or 13 periods. We need the next 12 weeks cash flow, because cash pays the bills. So when I go through this exercise and you see this thing called profit and loss, ignore it. It's cash positive or negative. We're going to put some items on there that are balance sheet related, cash going in and out of your accounts that you would never put on a profit and loss statement. But what we want to know is, can we survive? If we defer, and I get to the end of this, can I dig myself out of that hole? Right? I'm going to give you power. Now, warning, everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. How many cooks you have on the line, even when you come back. How many housekeepers you have. How many managers you have. What services you utilize or you've been paying for and not utilizing, whether it's a software package that, should be great for you, but you've never implemented. And so now you're just wasting money. If you're not going to use it, it goes off. Right? So we go line by line by line by line, and we evaluate everything that we do. We can no longer just allow linens to be unlocked and cooks and everybody to just grab all they want, and we have this really high linen bill. We got to lock it up, and we got to sign, hey, cook, you got a dry rag and a wet rag per shift. So all the mistakes we make, all the loose operating things we did that we didn't think we had to pay attention to, man, they're being paid attention to right now. And again, when we get out of this, you've got to be set up for success. This is your new reality. Now, there is one number I want to talk about before we get into the budgets, before we get into the spreadsheets, and that's prime cost. Because I want you set up to understand that, again, this is a key number for you. It's the one number you must know to have any chance to make money. It is a key number for you. And I want to make sure you're trying to get as close to it as possible. So when you get out of this, you can hit it and you know what it is. But I'm going to tell you right now, some of you are going to be 20, 30 points above it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're going to operate, we're just going to try and reduce whatever we have in the bank, make it reduce slow as possible. So by the time we get money from the government, or by the time we get out of this, that we can still survive. Now, here's the deal, prime cost. For old timers like me, we grew up, this is called controllable costs, in control of management. How I hire, fire, train, utilize people, purchase product, utilize product. It's my report card. Well, today we call it fancy, it's called prime cost. What is prime cost? Prime cost is total cost of goods sold plus total labor costs, including taxes, benefits, insurance. Oh, by the way, the only way to know your prime cost when it comes to cost of goods sold is we have to take inventories, because it's beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending is use divided by sales is my food cost, my bottle beer cost, my draft beer cost, my liquor cost, my wine cost. Now I'm going to make an assumption that many of us on this webinar right now have old habits. Inventory is too hard. It takes too much time. I can't get people to do it. So you don't. So I've got to tell you right now, you look at your last 12 months purchases divided by your last 12 months sales, that is your food cost, your poor cost by category. Because the fluctuation in inventory in a long period, that is it. Because if from one month to the next, I could buy too much and sales are lower, but the next month the sales are high and I don't buy much because I still had it on the shelf, and I've got these wonky looking poor costs because it's purchases divided by sales. That's not food costs. That's not poor costs. So 12 months, I can live with that. Next, we have labor costs. If I pay a cook $15 an hour and they punch in and punch out in 1 hour, punch in, punch out 1 hour, does $15 come out of your bank account? No. $18, $19 comes out of your bank account. There's taxes, benefits, insurance. Oh, they're a part of prime cost too. So when we start to look at this, and that's going to be important for you as we start to put our stuff together for the PPP. Now, owners, are you a part of prime cost? Yes and no. If you have keys in hand and you're a manager, you run a shift. whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a hotel and you're working the front desk, but you're running, you're actually doing you're the manager on duty. Nobody could get their job done without you being there. Then you're a part of prime cost or an adjusted salary. Let's say you pay yourself $70,000 a year, but you'd pay a GM $50,000. Well, $50,000 of that's part of prime cost. The other 20 is sucking up profits where I want you to be. Because in a real world, I'd be giving the lecture, hey, owners, I want you working on your business, not in your business. I want to fire you. Well, guess what? Throw that out the window again. What are you doing? Whatever it takes to survive, to keep as many people employed as possible. And many of us right now are working salary free to keep as many people employed as possible. That's how we're built. We're built for hospitality. We take care of people, sometimes to a detriment. That's why this lesson is so important. So prime cost is total cost good plus total labor costs, including taxes, benefits, insurance. What do I measure it against? Gross or net sales? Well, let me be very clear. Most 8 out of 10 POS systems on your DSR, your daily sales report, your nightly numbers, your daily sales, don't care what it's called, right? It says this is how much sales come in: food, bottled beer, draft beer, wine, liquor, comps, gift cards sold, sales tax collected, tips collected. And then on the other side, you've got cash, American Express, MasterCard, Discover, Visa, right? You know that report, yes? Okay. Most of those have this column that says gross sales, and it's wrong. 8 out of 10, what they call gross sales, the POS companies called gross sales, is net sales. So let's make sure we understand the difference between the two. Gross sales is the ring at the register before discounts, not including sales tax. Sales tax, by the way, is not a sale. It's the pleasure the government gives us for holding their money and penalizing us like they're the mob, right? If we don't pay it. It's money we should never play with, except for in the pandemic. We're gonna talk about that. Depending on what's going on, I'm not sure if you've got the abatement, the forgiveness for penalties, but you got to file. Most states are going that way. So far, all of a sudden, the first time in our lives, we may actually be using our sales tax money to pay our bills. Now, next. So gross sales, ring at the register, before discounts, not including sales tax. If I ring up a $10 burger and I comp $5, gross sales is $10. Net sales is the ring at the register after the discounts, not including sales tax. Ring up a $10 burger, comp $5, net sales is $5. So my question for you is, do we use gross or net sales? I'm going to answer it for you. Gross sales. Why? Let's say, using a restaurant analogy, I put out a burger for $10. I have a recipe costing card that has $3 in product. Use divided by sales is a 30% food cost. I asked chef to put out a burger, $10, use $3 in product. If you decide to run a BOGO, buy one, get one free, and the burger comes in 50% off, do you use half the product? No, you still use $3 in product. So now what's the food cost? 60%. Is that chef's fault? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to pay attention to comps. If we're comping because the food sucks, we're burning things, long ticket times, we got a problem. But when it comes to measuring actual food cost, actual accurate prime cost, $10 burger, it doesn't matter if it was comped. All right, my social working friends, still not with me. Let's say you decide to run a charity event. And let's pretend we're still open for business as normal. And you're going to have your favorite charity come in. You're going to close the restaurant for your favorite charity. And you're going to run the event. And it's going to be a $14,000 day. Because your heart is so big, you've decided to comp 50%. Right? $14,000 day, but you're going to comp 50%. Do you buy food for a $14,000 day or a $7,000 day? $14,000. Do you bring in staff to handle a $14,000 day or a $7,000 day? $14,000. Do I measure prime cost off of gross or net sales? The answer is gross. Your profit and loss will be exactly the same. But where we put those comps, right? Not as a sale, but a reduction in sale, but as an expense, we can truly see that we're running properly. Now, where should we be? Oh gosh, when I started coaching restaurants, 2003, the number was 60% for a quick service restaurant, 65% for a full service, and I had people down to 60% as full serve, thinking I was good. But things changed. We're going through another one. We had the recession, we had 9/11, we have which means every time we've had a correction in our industry, we're about to have another one. right? We're in it right now. But what has happened after that? Our food prices go up every invoice. Our liquor prices have gone up. Our labor has gone across the country on its way to $15 minimum wage, right? Things have changed. We need EPLI insurance for harassment, discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment. We need software for social media. We need software for delivery. We need software for reservations. We need POS systems. We need back office software. We need, like, where did all these expenses come from? 20 years ago, we didn't have all this. 30 years ago, we didn't have all this. And we go, the margins it doesn't work anymore. So I'm here to tell you, if you do at least $850,000 a year and more in gross sales, your new prime cost target is 65%. I'm sorry, 55%, not 65. I got to correct myself, right? 55%. If the old number was 65 for a full service restaurant and you do, let's say $1 million a year in sales, I'm telling you, if you're patting yourself on the back at 65% before the pandemic, I'm telling you that there's 10 points on the table going down to 55 or $100,000 in bottom line profitability. So now imagine as we start to hone in on this, when our sales have just gone away, how difficult it's going to be to hit a 55. But this is what I want you to start thinking about. You are going to come out the other side of this pandemic. You are going to be operating and you are going to do things differently. And we've got to start setting ourselves up for that mindset. As we implement these systems, whatever we can do to survive, they are going to multiply when we get out the other side. By the way, if you do under $850,000 a year more in sales, 60% prime cost is where you are. Now, I'm going to tell you, a majority of us are going to be 78, 80% or more prime cost right now because the sales aren't there. We don't have sales to support a $10,000 lease, $20,000 a month lease. This is why we're going through this. Now, this is important. I want you to think about why I don't want you to pay attention to industry averages. If I use industry averages, you'd hear that the average food cost for a restaurant is 34%. Average labor cost for a restaurant is 33%. Well, that's a 67% prime cost. No good. I don't want you to hone in on each one of us let's put it this way. We're all different. We're not on the same street corner, same price point, same style of service, same quality of product. No. So how we get to that prime cost is very different, right? And again, if I'm lodging, if I'm a campground, your prime cost is going to look very different because you're going to have some cost of goods sold. It's going to be really low, and you're going to have labor costs that's really high. So it's the same for restaurants. So if I look at this example, a family restaurant, 30% cost of goods sold, 20% labor cost, that's 55, right? 30, 25. I could be a burger restaurant, 20% cost, 35% labor cost, that's 55. I could be a steakhouse run a 40% cost of goods sold on purpose. Wouldn't recommend it, but I can do it on purpose because of something called cash contribution. While the food cost is high, the ring of the register is high, which lowers my labor costs. I have a $15 an hour cook, flips a burger, makes me $7, flips a steak at a 40% cost of goods sold, makes me $20. I don't need two cooks to flip it. So all of a sudden, this is why we have to pay attention to prime cost, right? Don't just pay attention to labor. Don't just pay attention to cost of goods sold. As we go through this cash flow budget, we got to look at it all. Now, here's the process we're going to go through. And again, anytime you have questions as we go through this, you let us know. Either I'll be looking at the question over here. If you see me veer off, I'm trying to take a look. Otherwise, Emily will hit me over the head with a baseball bat and stop me, and we'll answer the questions. So here are the 7 steps we're going to follow. Number 1, we're going to start with your normal month before pandemic. What were your sales when things were good? So we can see what were your expenses. We can see where labor was and how you ran your business. Then we're going to change things and build that for once we have that normal cash flow, what our new reality is. Sales dropped in 50%. We don't sell booze anymore. We only have cooks and a couple servers and a manager, right? We're going to go through those processes. You're going to create your plan to get to that point. Again, many of you are already living that. The plan is already there, but now we need to refine it. Somebody said, can I see the last slide? Missed the numbers. There are your numbers, and I'll keep going. All right. So we're then going to create our plan, and we're going to put our plan in place, and then that which we measure improves. Okay? All right. So now let me get us out of here. And I'm going to minimize this. get rid of that. Now, what do I have here? I'm gonna make the font larger on those numbers here in a second, but let's look at this PDF. Remember I said I'm gonna send you a login to my site, davidscottpeters.com, right here, step 1. You're gonna log in, go to my Learning Center, and you're gonna have different modules, products that are available to you. It's gonna be a Budget Builder MVP, 12-week cash flow, the spreadsheets, they are Google. So let me answer your question now. No, you cannot download it and use Excel. It's in the cloud, it's Google. All it costs you is a free Gmail account if you don't already have one, and a Google Drive for free. No software to buy. It all works, but it also allows you to see it anywhere you are. Any device that you're on, you can access the information. So Google's, for many of us, a really incredible thing because it gives us that flexibility. So be looking for that login. Late today, odds are tomorrow, by tomorrow afternoon, if you do not get a login from me, double check your spam or junk folder because it's probably there. If not, email me at david@davidscottpeters.com and I will get you set up. Next, what we want to do is we want to go grab the 12-week cash flow spreadsheet, copy it over, and we're going to start to create a month, gross sales for a good month or an average month. We're going to look at our sales mix. We're going to look at our cost of goods sold. We're going to look at our labor costs, fixed and variable. We're going to go line by line by line, fixed variable expenses, and we're going to find out if we have any balances, if we owe money to any one of our distributors or any one of our suppliers, and we're going to build that. So we'll come back to this here in a second. Now, this is just, you're going to do this, you can do this with a pen and paper, right? You don't need to have this in a spreadsheet, but that's what I did. Now, I know you can't see this. So what do? Since it's Google, it's in a web browser, I simply hit Control+ on my keyboard. As many times I hit it, makes it larger. If I hit Control-, it makes it smaller. If I can Control 0, it makes it default or 100%. You can do the view function and so on, but I'm an old DOS guy. That's how old I am, so I like keyboards. So I'm going to make this larger. If you cannot see this, make sure you let Emily know and she will chime in and I will make this larger. Hopefully you've got your Zoom webinar at full screen 100%. I hope. All right. Now, what I do here, we're going to follow those 7 steps. First thing I did is I picked the month. I'm in cell C6. I have $122,000 there. That is a typical month for my demo restaurant. Then I come over here and in column D, in the sales section, row 10 through 16, you'll notice here, this is where I put my variable sales mix. So I've got these things in yellow because I know that when I go into I build my template, those are on the chopping block. Let's say, for instance, throughout the country, there are states that have allowed people to sell liquor to go, which is not right. It's a change to the liquor license laws just for this. Well, how much wine, how many cocktails are you going to sell? For many of us, we're going to go to 0, right? So bottom line is, this is my sales mix. By the way, where did I get my sales mix from? Your DSR report, right? Whatever you put the numbers in a spreadsheet, your accounting software, your POS system. So this is nothing hard to find. You know your sales for a good month and you know what your sales mix is. It says that 87.5% of sales is what? Food. Now watch if I were to change this to 90%, watch the 107,000 next to it. It's just a variable. Now I'm over 100%, so I'm just hit Control Z. So somebody just asked, should commissions and bonuses be calculated in prime cost? Yes, but only for the right person. So for instance, if everybody understands the question, if I have an event center and or an event space and I've got a catering salesperson, well, if the catering person is getting that bonus, no, they're not a prime cost. They don't run the restaurant. Bookkeepers, marketing people, not a part of prime cost. Only the people that run the restaurant shift for shift, that's a part of prime cost. So manager bonuses would be a part of prime cost. Now, I would have a higher labor cost in there for the month and my budget for that manager to pay them. But odds are nobody's getting a bonus right now. Right, Rob? Ain't happening. Okay. So now, we put in our sales mix. Then I come down here, and again, I put in my cost of goods sold. Now, I highlighted it's 26.5%. Now watch, that means 26.5 cents on $107,000. If I change this to 30, watch the 28,400 next to it. All right, it's variable. So sales go up, sales go down, it changes. So I just grab that. So I'm getting my history. You have that, don't you? And if you don't, take your last 12 months purchases divided by your last 12 months gross sales by category, and you're going to have your number. Now I'm going to scroll down. Now we come down to salaries, payroll expenses. Now notice I've got in yellow, they would normally be white cells in my spreadsheet that I type in, they're fixed expense. So the owner makes $5,000 a period or a month, and I pay my managers $8,577 every single month, whether I do $1 in sales or $100,000 in sales, fixed expense. They're in yellow because that's going to be on the table. Then I come down and here are my variable expenses. Cooks are 10.5% of sales, right? And so we put all this together. We build the month as if we didn't have a reduction in sales. We're not in a pandemic. I'm going to scroll down, and then I've got my taxes, benefits, insurance portion of this. This 12% is of payroll. It's the only place in this section underneath labor cost where a percentage isn't of sales, it's of payroll. So I could fill out FICA, SUI, and on, or I can just shortcut it and 12% payroll, right? Then I've got my workers' comp, fixed expense. I've got my health insurance, fixed expense, all right? Where am I gathering this data? You've got this data right now in your QuickBooks. It's going to take you nothing to say, what's my payment? What does it look like? Okay, grab a payroll report. Now we go line by line by line, and we say, okay, my rent is $8,500 a month. Put it in there, fixed expense. My electric on average is $1,500, put it in there. I come down here, my repairs and maintenance is a variable expense. I look at what I spent the year, take the total for the year divided by the total for the sales, and I go 1.5% of sales on average. Well, I put it in yellow is because depending on where cash flow is, you may not fix anything. We're just trying to survive. Where others, if you had cash flow or you took out a loan and it makes sense, you know you're going to come out the other side, you start putting lipstick on the pig, if you will. We start painting. It's the time to redo the bar top. We're going to pull the kitchen all away and we're going to replace all the FRP. You know, this is our time where we've got downtime. We could do these things we could never do while we operate, right? So as I scroll down, we go, whether it's a variable expense like here in office supplies in cell D110, or it's a fixed expense payroll processing on cell C112. And we go down and we just enter in all the data, fixed, variable, fixed, variable, fixed, variable, till we get to the bottom and say, based on this restaurant, I should make on this month $6,000 in profit. This is yet to be cash flow, okay? And I'm running a prime cost row 201 of a 62.94%. Really doesn't matter. What matters is I've got to customize this, number one, to match your chart of accounts. So what do I do here? I come over here to the master. This is Budget Builder MVP. This I had programmed. Now I'll tell you, I have a non-compete, can't do software, did software. I've got another year of a non-compete. Don't know that I'll do software again, but I did pay programmers to program. There are things up here past the word help in the menu bar. Everything here, input mode, copy forward, actuals, show period, actually have been programmed. This is not software, but I'm giving you all the benefits, all my years of knowledge of developing software and giving it to you in a spreadsheet to make life easy for you. Now, there are things that we want to do. First is we'll look at the bottom, and there's the budget report, bills owed, and setup. These are the bills owed is something wouldn't be in the normal Budget Builder MVP. This is for the 12-week cash flow version. But what I want to do is take you first to the setup. Now, here's the setup. What you're going to do is you're going to type in your weeks, your date ranges here. Now, this is set up for calendar months or periods. So 12 or 13 period accounting. So fortunately for us, I can adapt this to be a 12-week period, right? The next 12 weeks. So put your dates here, all right? Just know I can type over those and hit enter. That's all it is. So I'm going to hit Control Z. When I make that change, here, I'll put in exclamation marks here. When I make that change, you'll see that when I come over here in period 1, it's there, all right? It's going to flow over. So you can customize this to match your business. So this is where I told you, I'm showing restaurant as an example, but this is hospitality, Minnesota. We got lodges, we got resorts, we got hotels, we got campgrounds, we got restaurants, we got caterers, right? I don't care what business you're in. You're going to customize this to match your business. The same process does not matter restaurant. That's just what I'm using an example because that's what my expertise is in. So now we'll put in our date range. So if you're starting this process now, obviously these are shifting. You're going to start the 6th through, right? And add the next 2 weeks. You're going to put in your chart of accounts. So for instance, let's say for some reason, if you were not going to be selling liquor, bottled beer, draft beer, wine, and merchandise, you could just simply delete them. You put in the cost of goods sold on the other side, and I could delete them right there. Okay, I'll show you what that's going to look like. Then we come over here and we look at our column G. This is our payroll expenses, owner salary, admin, whatever your chart of accounts is, however you have it laid out. I'm not going to go into what a proper chart of accounts looks like because right now, who cares? Can I survive? Right? I'm literally throwing all the things I preach and I would thump you over the head for and browbeat you for to make sure you do it right. Right now, it's survival. I really don't care. But I want you to notice this checkbox in column H. That means, is it a part of prime cost? So Rob, your question is, you could put your bonuses and your commissions in payroll, but you would clear it if it's not a part of prime cost. Hopefully that's a question you were going to ask, and I've already preemptively answered it. So let's say I don't have maintenance, delete that, and I clear it, right? Again, I probably don't have a bartender working right now, but maybe I just leave it in there. And I set up my taxes, benefits, insurance. You decide whether they're a part of prime costs in column J. And then I want to show you here, column K is your chart of accounts. If you copy and paste it from a spreadsheet, if you don't type it from your QuickBooks or Xero or Compete or any other software you're using, if you don't type it in, I want you to right-click, paste special, values. If you're ever going to copy and paste from another spreadsheet, whether Excel or Google Sheet, Word document or Google Doc, copy, paste, values only. Otherwise, you're going to see the formats change. It looks really bizarre and you're going to be unhappy. All right, I'm going to scroll down and here's my chart of accounts. Now there's a couple things that I want to do. I already deleted amortization, depreciation, interest expense. Who cares? But I added, and I put them in yellow. I want you to keep them for your budget, your 12-week cash flow budget, loan payments, miscellaneous. What the hell's miscellaneous? I would browbeat you if you had any money in miscellaneous on a budget. Because what is miscellaneous? How do I control that? It is simply a place to put an expense so you talk to your accountant so they know what bucket it goes into. But for this, if you have a bill, you don't know where it belongs, but you paid it, put it in miscellaneous. Again, I don't care about how accurate you are to where the expense was. We're talking about cash in, cash out. That's all it is. Next, sales tax paid. That's a balance sheet issue, but it belongs on my cash because I'm going to collect sales tax, pay sales tax. We're all about bank balance right now. Tips paid out. If you're paying tips on a credit on their paychecks, collect the charge tips, pay out the charge tips, cash in and out. And we want to have a plan that if you're one of those that is booming or you are finding a way to make it, you became a grocerant and your delivery is going really well, you reduce your labor and you're trying to pay down some back bills, well, we're going to put those back bills, the payments right there and reduce them on another spreadsheet. Now, if I make all these changes, let's just pay attention to these right here. I'm going to bring you over to the budget report and show you that they're gone. But you know what? I don't want to see all this empty stuff. So what I've built in here is there is a button, update changes in A17. I'm going to click on that. And when I come over here, you'll notice at the top, it's running a script. In the top middle, it says running script. Wait until that says finished. Don't do anything. Now what you're going to see is it's going to hide columns, hide rows. And so this means there is a video, an hour-long video on how to use a spreadsheet in Budget Builder MVP. The product I'm giving you a login to see. Watch the video. There's lots of nuances to this. You cannot change formulas here. You cannot add columns. You cannot add rows. You must use the setup page and use that update button. Otherwise, I customize. It's all here. Now, what's different in this that you wouldn't know because you're brand new to me is right here. This section, if I come here, this profit and loss section, by the way, the word profit and loss means nothing to us in the 12-week cash flow version. I don't care if you're making money. Cash in, up and down. That's what we want, cash. Well, there's this thing called restore formulas. You're going to see in the video demo of how to use a spreadsheet that if you delete some of the formulas, it'll put them back. Anything above row 208, everything down here, this colorful mess that you see, I added to this. Because as I was teaching this with a CPA friend of mine, Ann Gannon of the Largo Group, who if you need somebody, she's phenomenal. We went through and we did a four-week mastermind on this. We still have another couple weeks left on it. In the first week, she did it her CPA way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, for a restaurant owner, the business owner, that's complicated. So I created this. And so we're going to pay attention down here. But no, if you blow this up, you're going to have to copy and paste the cells from the original spreadsheet. You'll keep a master, make a copy, and just copy things over. If you blow it up, you're going to have access to I'm not taking this away. So a year from now, you go, I remember this webinar we did on cash flow. Go log into my site. It'll be there. I'm making sure that you have what's necessary to be successful. All right. Let's go to step one. Well, not really step one. It's step one in my spreadsheet. It is actually step 4 in your instructions. This instruction, you're going to have a copy of the PowerPoint as a PDF download, and you're going to have this PDF to walk you through step by step creating your cash flow. Again, in my site. So we customized everything, right? We put everything together. Well, now we've got to create our actual month. What do? We grab that data from this month, this single month, right? And then we come over here and we create the month or the weeks based on that month. So $30,000 weeks, $120,000 weeks divided by 4, 30,000, 30,000, 30,000, as if before the pandemic hit. Then we grabbed our sales mix. We put that in. Now, these are some controls. I'm going to show you why this is better than a spreadsheet that you would just kind of type in stuff. I have the ability right here to copy this forward. You see this whole section called sales? I could be on any cell. I come up here, copy forward, and I can copy it from the row wherever my cell is. So if it's in period 3, that row all the way across going forward. If it was the period, which I'm not going to do, I can take a whole month and copy it across. I was doing a 12-month budget all day long. Zip. But for this, I've got some weekly bills down there. I'm going to show you the difference down to the bottom, so I don't want to copy. So I just want to take the sales mix for this category of cost. So I say copy selected category forward. Watch what happens. It says running script. Let it run its deal. Again, it's all happening up in your web browser in the cloud. Boom, there it is all the way across. Okay. Then I come down here and I look at my cost of goods sold, 26%, 24%, so on and so forth. Where'd I get these? I set them up in that single month. Well, I want to take those forward. Copy forward for the category. Give it a second. Let it run its script. Zoom, all the way across. Right? See, I've built this. There's a lot of power behind this to make life easier for you. Then I come down here and I've got my owner's salary broken down by week, my manager's salary by week, and I still have my variable expenses. I want to bring that across. Copy forward, category, let it run its deal. I didn't think you wanted to watch me type, so I'm doing all these things. So I come down here and I look at my payroll expenses and I make sure I bring those across. That is a section. Anytime there's these sections, that's a category. I bring that across. Again, there's a video that will walk you through step by step. And hopefully in the next month or so, I'm going to have a large manual for you. It's in process. Now, got all that done. Oh, by the way, when I look at this, there's a couple things to pay attention to. I know my prime cost. In this case, my restaurant was already running a 65% prime cost, 10 points higher than I wanted to. And a vast majority of us are going to be here when time we're good. Vast majority of us don't take inventories. Vast majority of us don't control labor and schedule on budget or send people home on time and all these things. Usually run about a 78% prime cost. That's why we are in such shock. Like we didn't have the cash put aside. Now, I come down here and I go week to week when a bill will be paid. So if I have a loan payment, the loan payment. Remember, I added that in the yellow section. Now here, electric. I pay my bill here in period 1, March 23rd to the 29th. And then I go 4 weeks later, and here I am, W100, $14.95. And I go across, and what am I going to have? I'm going to have 4 weeks later, AQ 100, $14.95. Put the bill the way you pay it. Penny profit versus percentage. Rick, the percentage is the penny in the way I'm doing it. So I know I confuse people sometimes the way you view thing accounting, points versus percent. So every percent in the way I'm talking about, that's a penny, right? So if I save 1%, right, we're going to do it that way. So percent of sales. So whatever, when I talk about a percentage, it's 1% times sales, 2% times sales. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. If not, let me know. So we come down here. Now notice here, in period 2, I pay my gas, water, telephone. In period 3, I pay my internet service $150. Fixed, 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 fixed. Then I've got my repairs and maintenance. Remember, row 106, 1.5% of sales. Watch the video because there's a way to switch this input mode from amount versus percentage, and it flops the equations for you. So I may get rid of repairs and maintenance. I'll show you as we go through there. But right now I'm still building the week as if we were still $120,000 a month. And we go line by line by line by line, and we put in when linens are paid. We put in our small wares, right? You put everything you pay based on the week it happens. Now, there are a couple things, if you remember, right down here, rows 152 through 156 were those cash flow items that I put in our new chart of accounts. These are never going in on a budget. These are just cash. I don't care about the word net profit and loss. It makes zero sense to this spreadsheet. It's cash in and out, but you've got to know that. I've adapted one tool to help you during a pandemic. That's what I've done. Now, I'm going to come down here and we see all of our numbers. We know what our profit or loss should look like, cash plus or minus, I should say, and what have you. Now I come down here. This is where you need to be taking good notes. Now I put them in. I think I've got the majority of them right here in this PDF, right? And we're going to go through and we're going to create our plan next. All right. Again, you're going to have this. So I come down here. The first thing I want you to do is on row 212, if you're taking notes, is put an N if payroll does not happen in that period, or a Y if it does in that box that is white. Any box that is white is data entry. Any box or cell, I should say, that has a color in it, whether gray, red, blue, green, whatever, there's a formula behind there. Don't play with it. Okay. So if it's a white cell, it means data entry. So watch what happens here. Notice here, I'm going to highlight row 218. Now you see that cell C218 is green, $12,874. And next to it in our speak David, D218, not a pay week. Now it's not great grammar, but you know what? Don't care. I needed to fit it in a cell. So watch when I change this N to a Y. Ready? I'm going to hit enter. It now says pay week, and that is now a negative. Now let me reverse that. Next thing I want you to pay attention to is at the top here, cell C213, you're going to be putting in your reconciled starting cash balance. It cannot be what the bank account says when you log in, right? Because if you wrote $20,000 in checks and they haven't cleared, you're going to have $20,000 more in that bank you think you can spend, which is not yours. If you don't have a reconciled balance, use your checkbook balance. Assume you've done your math right, and at least that'll be really damn close, right? And so this $24,000 right here, that was data entry, white cell. That's the only time you're putting your bank balance in. Now, I want you to pay attention to row 219 when I change this back to a Y. Yes, it's a payroll. Notice it went from $30,000 to $13,000. It says payroll is going out the door. We're not accruing the money, we're paying it out. Does that make sense? Now, I did a webinar with a group of people from New York, restaurant owners in New York. Well, that state, they're by mandate a weekly payroll. So it was yes, 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 yes. Okay? So now we're going to talk about these other two rows, credit card tips collected and sales tax collected, in the next example. But as I come down here, you're going to build this up, and then we're going to come up here and to those new rows that I had you add, loan payment, miscellaneous, all the way here. We're going to be adding in the tips that we're going to pay out. We're going to add in the sales tax we pay out the period it happens. So I'll show you that in a second. Again, anytime you have questions, you see I'm doing a pretty good job paying attention over here. I have no idea what's going on in the chat, but I know what's going on in the question and answer. So here we go. Now we have our new reality. You've lived it. You've had 3 weeks of new reality, right? Maybe 2 weeks of new reality, depending on when you were told, mandated to change your operation. So the first thing I did is I went in and I changed my sales to half. What is my new reality is 50%, 50% of sales, 15,000, 15,000, 15, and so on. Okay. Well, that's a big change. The next thing is I got rid of all of my sales mix for anything other than food. Food is 100%. I'm not selling bottled beer. I'm not selling wine. I'm not. Now you might have come in here and say, you know what? I'm doing 95% food sales, and my bottled beer, I'm doing 2.5%, and wine, I'm doing 2.5%, and you just send it across, right? It's whatever your reality is. But for my demo restaurant, I'm doing 100% food. So if I'm a campground, if I'm a hotel, a resort, right? It's your categories. What are the ancillary things that you're not selling now, right? What are you not doing? So now, come down here. Let me look here. My cost of goods sold, that all came from that 1 month template. When I built the actual, right? Same. But notice there is no cost of goods sold in here. It doesn't matter what the percentage is. A percentage of 0 is 0. So in this case, 26.5% of $15,000 says I should use $3,975. That's what I should be spending in money for just food, not including paper, Jenny, small wares, equipment. Those are line items in the operating expenses. So the invoice coming in is larger, but the expense is still in this cash flow. That's just food, okay? Because we're going to try and control our prime cost best we can. Then I come down here and I did a couple things. As an owner, I made a decision. I'm going to still pay myself. I still have bills. I've got a small family. You know, everybody's, your spouse may have lost their job in this. Your kids may be, you know, in a private school, and you're doing all these things. Whatever, you're just trying to survive. And right now, your intention is to pay yourself. The next thing you did was you got rid of managers by salary. Well, for all intents and purposes, we want to keep our managers. They should be the most valuable people in our business. So I want to keep them employed first. So as I cut people, those managers are going to have to cook food. They're going to have to run things. They're going to have to deliver. They're going to have to do all these things that are line positions. So that means they're no longer going to be exempt from overtime, right? 50% or better of my job needs to be managing people, managing at least 2 people, direct supervision, right? To be exempt from overtime as a salaried person. Well, that's going out the window. So I'm making you hourly. So I moved them down here to row 59 to hourly, and I actually also reduced their hourly rate. If you took their 40 hours a week, I know you work more than 40, but it doesn't matter, 40 divided by your salary. And let's say it came out at $25 an hour. I might be putting you at $20. I might put you at $18, because we're going to share the pain so that we can keep as many people employed as possible. That's what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do in order to make it, right? So I put my 10% there. Then I put my cooks in here at 10.5%. So I'm keeping. Now I want you to pay attention. There's something called minimum staffing levels. So while this is a percentage of sales, there is a chance that you're going to come up here to input mode and change it to amount entry, and you're going to watch, it's going to switch. So now the equation is here. Notice anything gray, there's an equation. Now this is input, just the information we're going to have there, right? So now I need to shut this down. I can't shut it down. I'm sorry, they're messaging me. All right, so now, why do I say it's a fixed expense? At some point in time, you may have cut your labor down to a server at a cash register, manning the phones. You as a manager, manning the phones, running food, taking it to the Door Dashers and Uber Eats and Postmates and so on. You may be looking at 2 cooks on the line, and whether you have $1 in sales or you do $2,000 for the day, they can handle twice as much. That's as low as you can go. So this becomes a fixed expense, right? So I may do that because sometimes by percentage, I may not be able to get enough labor for it. So I'm going to come up here and we're going to go to input mode, change it back to percentage. Now, come down. I got rid of all my other positions. I laid them off. I fired them. I did whatever necessary. And I only have servers coming in on Friday and Saturday to man the phones. Like I am at bare minimum in this restaurant. You may have more. You may have cash in the bank and you're doing your very best to keep everybody employed. I don't know this. That's why you've got to create your cash flow. I'm just giving you an example and some of the things that restaurant owners and business owners have to consider. Now, I come down here and I look at my labor cost, $4,400. Well, wait, I still have tax. $100 represents? How much money you can spend. Like the only bills you can pay if you didn't want to deplete your bank balance is $5,617, right? This is running a 55% prime cost. Odds are it's going to be higher for you. Odds are it's going to be 70%. But all it says is based on cost of goods sold and labor costs, those things that I can control to whatever extent. Again, if you're at minimum staffing levels, you don't have a lot of control. That's how much money I'm going to have. I'm going to show you that number 3 more times. Now, we come down here and we build our, again, when the bills are being paid, we put it in. We keep going down. This is our new reality. Now, I want to show you something. Notice I have payroll weeks. So period 2 is a payroll week in my example. So when I come up here, sales tax paid out is 1. That's when my sales tax license, I pay my taxes the first week. And then the tips paid out, it's a payroll week. So if I've been holding your charge tips, it's going out on this payroll. See, these are not profit and loss items. These are balance sheet items, T accounts, right? Cash goes down and my accounts payable goes down. Well, bottom line is here they are as an expense, if you will, in this cash out. So you've got a plan if you notice here, I go to the next payroll, here's tips paid out in period 4. But then in period 6, it's tips paid out and sales tax that I've been collecting. Okay. So whatever the bill, that also means, let's say for instance, if you're done a great job of marrying your community and they're helping you out, I've seen a lot of restaurants ask for the buy people a gift card plea. Well, guess what? You're going to need a line item for gift cards of cash going up, right? It's cash you're collecting. It's not a sale, but it needs to go into this spreadsheet so that you show that you've got more cash coming in. Now, as I scroll down, remember, first thing we did, we put yes, no for our payroll week. That creates the equation. We put in our beginning cash balance, reconciled, or at least in our check register where our bank balance is as the beginning of this week. Then we come down here and it's beginning 24,000 plus my income. Let me show you what that is. That's the row 195, the positive or negative cash flow from operating. So I take my 24,000 plus, well, now I have $25,000 I could spend. Oh, wait a second. Now, again, any cells that are white, you type in a number. So credit cards, tips collected, you're going to anticipate what you think the tips are going to be. Sales tax collected, you're going to anticipate the sales tax you're going to collect, right? 8 point whatever percent times your sales, boom. You've got to enter these numbers in. So when I do this, and oh, by the way, not a pay week, so it's going to add back in the payroll, because up at the top, if it was like a profit and loss statement, we took payroll out. Remember that $5,400 payroll? Well, here it is. It's now adding it back to your cash flow. So when I highlight all these numbers and I go down here to the bottom right-hand side, I click on that, $34,627. Notice here, row 219, cell C219, 34,627. That's what it is. All the positive cash flow, right? After my cost of goods sold was paid, after every other bill was paid, the cash I collected, and then I sit there and I said, okay, wait a second. Plus credit cards, tips, payroll added back because it's not coming out of my bank account, and boom, that's how much money. Again, showing you row 220, cell 220, C220, $5,600. Where'd I see that? Let me scroll back up. Right after labor, after operating expenses, there it is, same number. That means your bank balance will not decrease, your bank balance will not increase. Make sense? Now, for a lot of us, we sit there and we look at this and say, wait, I have this other tab called bills owed. You may have accrued money that you owe other vendors. We need to be paying attention to this. And as we go through this plan, if we decide to defer, say rent, it's going to go here. We're going to see how big a hole we might be digging for ourselves. So now, what else do I have here? Down below, this is important. This kind of shows you where the math comes from and how to interpret this spreadsheet. If you do everything right, this is your sales, $15,000. Your labor cost was $5,400. Your available money would have been $9,500. Your cost of goods sold was $3,900, right? Just food, just bottled beer, draft beer, wine, liquor, no paper, no Janny, right? So it says down here to break even, the third time I'm going to show you this number, $5,617, I could spend, pay bills, $5,600 worth. That's what I could do. If I wanted to maintain the positive cash flow, keep the $1,000 I made in positive cash flow, I could only spend maximum $4,500, right? So I got three key numbers I can look at right now. What's positive, what really makes this work is, as I scroll up, we're going to come in here and I want to show you period 2. Remember the money that's going out for tips collected and sales tax. Well, when I come down here, that shows a negative $14,000. Well, as I come down and I look at this, my ending balance should be 34,000. Notice 34,000 cell C219 is now also H213, same number. So if I were to change this number to $30,000 as my beginning balance, notice that it becomes 40,000. Everything flows through period to period, week to week. Now, start with 34,000. I'm projecting to lose 15,000 in cash flow. I collect this. Oh, it's a payroll week. So payroll, notice this is 7,000. This is not the payroll up there. This is already gone for you. This would have been when we operated normally, and 2 weeks later, I have payroll for back when my sales were higher. Right now, as you start this, your new reality, you're already 2 weeks in, you're 3 weeks in, your payroll is going to be about the same, your minimum staffing. But if we do this going in the future, this is the same thing. You're going to do this after this pandemic. You're going to manage your cash. I'm giving you one of the most powerful tools you as an operator could ever have, controlling your cash, seeing your crystal ball 12 weeks forward. So now we come down here and it says, oh, after all, my bank balance is going to be 15,000. Notice here. And then the next week it's 28. And the next week it's 14. The next week it's 25. And as I go across and I do this each week, I get to the end and I'm going to see that I start my week with $25,000 in the bank. Well, when I come up here and $58,000 is my negative, Well, that's not profit loss, that's cash flow. So odds are what it's doing, it's chewing up. What I care about is by the time I get to the end of this, if I look at it, I'm probably going to be in trouble. Yeah, I'm going to have a $11,000 cash balance, right? I'm operating a deficit. I'm just trying to manage cash. Let me show you. Let's say we start to look at things. I'm going to bring this all the way to the top. And again, ask questions, please. I look at these numbers and I go, hey man, what if I could figure out how to do $16,000 in sales? Control copy, can I paste? Yeah. And I'm pasting it across. What would that mean? Could I become a grocerant, right? Where you're selling groceries. And I come down, I look at this and I say, wait a second, that $1,000 per week, what difference does it make? Well, I go, where's my bank balance? 15,000. That really translates to about $3,000. Y'all have that number where you can't breathe. You don't have enough money in the bank to make payroll. You don't have enough money. Like there's a certain amount of cash we need to have in our bank at any time that we can just handle every day writing checks. Well, maybe that number is 15,000. That $1,000 makes a difference. What if we came up and we said, okay, I look at this and I say, I've got to put out a new menu. And, week 2, I'm coming in here and I need a 24% food cost. Got to have it. Chef, you got to give it to me. 10 items, make them high dollar value, low high cash contribution, low food cost, need it all. So I click on here, I go copy forward by row, and all of a sudden I let it run its routine. Wait till it says finished. Boom. Now from that cell forward, it's 24%. I come down and I look and I say, okay, what happens to my cash balance? I say, okay, I am now going to be in a position where I'm going to end with 19,000. Chef, I need a new menu that can produce that food cost. Now we operate. Now we go through and we say, wait a second. I come in and I say, I'm going to open up actuals, show budgeted actuals. So now a week finishes. I need to put in my actual numbers. So I'm going to scroll at the top. Beautiful part about this is it's hiding the columns. You can't add columns, don't add rows. Anything that's within this realm, because there's script that allows you to do this. Now I want you to pay attention to something here. I come up here and I'll put in my actual sales. You got that from your DSR, but throughout the week, I'm putting in my bills, right? Whatever you're paying or not paying, put them in. Don't put sales in yet till the end. What happens is you'll notice it doesn't change anything going forward. They're like hidden. But the moment I come in and add sales, I want to show you something. What if I did $20,000 in sales? Before I hit enter, I want you to pay attention to cell C33, cost of goods sold, 26.5% times $15,000 in expected sale was $3,975. When I hit enter and my sales were $5,000 higher, notice that $3,900 is now $5,300. It is 26.5% of actual sales. So all your variable expenses in your budget now have switched to the sales you actually did. So what happens if this was a $13,500 week? My cost of goods sold, my food cost was only $3,577. So understand, every variable expense now changes. It doesn't care that you thought you do 15,000, you actually did. Your new budget target is 26 cents on every dollar that actually came in. Labor, everything goes driven off that. So that's huge. Now, I've already entered in data. I didn't think you wanted me to watch me do it. I spent more money in food costs by $23. That's phenomenal, right? I decided I couldn't pay myself. I couldn't do it. I planned on it, but I didn't. My managers, they ran more. We were getting our systems in place. We weren't as efficient as we thought. My cooks, we weren't as efficient as we thought. So I'm 150. Now I'm $400 over budget. My servers over budget. I'm just learning, right? New systems. I put my employee benefits in and so on. Now I come down and I look line by line. My electric was heavier. We were colder the month before. I just put an average bill in. That's higher by $293. My trash removal was the same. I didn't do any repairs and maintenance. And you go line by line by line, put in the information, see the variance. Then I come down to the bottom. I thought, based on the sales I expected, I was going to have a positive $2,200 in cash flow. In this case, because I didn't pay myself, because my labor costs were higher, I actually have a $2,300 positive. And I come down here, and the first thing I want to do is a couple things. I need to come in and put in what I actually paid in credit card tips. Let's say it's $2,800, right? What actually came in. And let's say my sales tax collected, because sales were lower, was just make it $1,000, make life easy for me. Well, now I come here, and when all my numbers are in, now that it's opened up, you see there's now E and F. You couldn't see those columns. In cell F213, I'm going to put in an X. Oops, not a C, an X. Watch when I hit that. So all of a sudden, over here, the weeklies change. I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to delete it. Pay attention to cell H213. My cash flow balance starting the week, based on what I budgeted, is $35,000. Come in here, put in my X. Because cash was going out, it's only $30,000. So now I can come up here, go to my actuals, hide empties. It's going to hide all those empty actual weeks. It's going to reveal, get rid of the budget for week one. That's my actual. So when I look at all my numbers, it's what really happened, what I hope is going to happen or think is going to happen. And what I may do is come in here and I start to look at things and I go, you know what? I'm in trouble. I'm going to go to my landlord and I'm going to say, hey, landlord, put 0 here. Oh, let me hold it. Control Z. I'm going to copy it. So right click, copy. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to my bills owed. I'm going to say landlord. I'm going to put in the amount, paste values, and say it was April. Okay. Oops. So it's past due. So anything I defer, I'm going to bring over here so that I can run a total. I just come up here. If you know anything about spreadsheets, sum, highlight the numbers, whatever's there, hit enter, done. So I've accumulated $25,000 in back bills, right? So let's go back here. I come to my landlord. I'm going to take in period 4. I'm going to put a 0 in. I'm going to right click, because it's Google spreadsheet, right click, comment. Deferred rent. How about you spell things right, David? There we go, 2 R's. All right, so I'm leaving myself a note. Anytime you see a little triangle, there's a note. So you can make the changes to your cash flow budget, put them over, and you know, why isn't rent there? You left yourself a note. Now, if I come across and I say, well, I'm going to do that for 2 months, right? Come in, I'd make that change in my bills owed. I come down and I say, you know what? I'm going to, let's say that's the only change I make. Well, now I look at it and say, maybe my magic number was $35,000 in the bank to make it. And here's cell BF, row 210, $32,400. What you're going to do is this. You're going to decide what to defer. You're going to create your plan. Each week, you're going to put your actuals in. You're going to change the plan. You're going to put your actuals in. You're going to change the plan. You're going to put your actuals in, change the plan. And we may say, oh my gosh, we got the best news in the world. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's my first 4 weeks. And then I go, oh, 8 weeks. I'm still in this. And we anticipate another 2 weeks. And we think that in week 11, our sales are going to jump back up to $28,000 in a week, because we're opening the floodgates back up. And so we come up here and we start to look at things. We say, okay, well, I'm going to go grab from my past. What? My sales mix. No, my sales mix. Copy. Come over here. Click on period 11. Paste special values. Right? So now all of a sudden that's there. Oh, I'm going to go grab from that period. I'm going to grab labor and assume that I bring that back to normal. Copy. I go to my labor, paste special values. We go grab my managers. They're back, so I need that amount of money. Copy. come back here, paste special values. I like this information. I'm gonna take each one of these. I'm gonna copy them across. So copy forward by category. Let it run the script. Copy forward by category. Let it run its script. Copy forward by category. Let it run its script. And now I come down and I look and I say, oh, now that that scenario happens, I'm going to have an ending balance. Oh, wait a second. I can't go back the number to normal. I'd have a $12,000 negative. Do you remember when I said we can't do what we always did? We're going to have to make changes. And so here's what you can do. You create that initial template. Then you come up here, you hit File, Make Copy, and you create Scenario 2, lower sales. Scenario 3, higher sales. Scenario 4, no manager. Scenario 5, until you hone in on where you want to be. And if you've got to make copies and different versions every week, you do so, because it's only your best guess. But what you get to do is take your gut, what you know about running your business, along with what's the data that's actually happening, and you can start to proactively manage your business. This is huge. This should provide you the lifeline to decide when you listen, when you go to the Hospitality Minnesota webinar on Monday about the PPE and the CARES Act, right? The money. Should I borrow the money? If it comes in at this time, will that be enough? Because all of a sudden your cash will go up, right? You'll add it at the top, money that comes up, and you'll say, oh, that's my breathing room. The money's cheap enough. It allows me to keep people employed and so on. Like, this is huge. Emily, I don't see questions. I feel like I'm scaring the heck out of people. This should be good news.
I don't see any either. Don't be afraid, guys. Put questions in the Q&A module. So we
And
can
I'm right
handle
at
it for
90
you.
minutes. That's a rarity for me. So if you've got a question, do me a favor. Type it in the question box so that I can answer it for you. I don't want to keep you here any longer than you need to be, but I want to make sure I answer your questions.
Oh, wait, we have a question from Annie Spade. And she, I think this might be for a little bit for everybody, but she wants to know how are some ways that folks are going about reducing salaries. She had 3 managers leave in one day because the stimulus package was, in theory, using air quotes, paying them more than their normal salary. And now she feels compelled to keep everyone's wages at the same rate. So what's your thoughts there?
So when it comes to managers, I'm going to give them the haircut. Now, there is their choice to go take that. There are employees that love you to death and will step up, whether they're managers or not. They'll step up. You know who they are. They've come out of the woodworks. Tell me there is not any owner on this call right now, this webinar, that you haven't had this core group of people that have come out of the work. They love you to death. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's a red flag for me that your managers are going to go chase the dollar and not support you and the team that's there the best they can. That says that we have a bit of a culture problem. Now, here's the deal. I'm a systems guy. Let's put in a key item report, waste sheet, and a purchase allotment system. Guarantee you drop your food costs 2-3 points, ... Let's get the systems in place. Truth of the matter is, I teach you to count stuff. I teach you to do math. The magic is changing our company culture, getting it used every single day, saying the numbers are important, that we still need to take care of our guests, our employees. So I'm going to tell you, I don't know you, and I don't know what's going on in your restaurant, but there's a cancer somewhere that these people were willing to leave you for unemployment for $1. That what it means to me is, let them go. They're doing you a favor, because there are going to be some really top-notch people. When this pandemic is over, they're dying for a job and thankful for an opportunity. And that's when you bring them in. And that's where I'm going to tell you, now we need proper supervision. You need to hold people accountable. You need to give everybody your vision for the future. You need to be able to give them the systems to do their job and the training to do their job. We have to change how we did it in the past. Because I'm going to tell you, my gut says, and it is no dig on you, it's happening all across the country. If you had a chink in your armor when it came to company culture, you may have never seen it because they were still making money, and it was very difficult to leave anywhere, right? Grass is always greener. If they're leaving you for unemployment on purpose because they're going to make a few extra dollars for 3 months, that is short-sighted, and they probably don't belong on your team. Em, I don't know about you, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Does that answer change any if it's hourly staff instead of managers?
Hourly is going to be tough. I don't know that we can take them down as much as we're going to reduce the workforce, but you never know. Again, that's a culture thing. How badly do they want to work? If you sit down with your team, here's what I'm going to tell you. One of the, I do a lot of things on YouTube. Go see my channel, David Scott Peters. I provide a weekly tip, and I've had to switch off my weekly tips into pandemic stuff.
Mhm.
And this last week, I went live on Monday, and I went through all the things. Got to have a 12-week cash flow. This. And the final thing I said we have to do as operators is you have to lead. Your employees, your team is dying for you to lead them. Now, if it's follow me into the fire, then follow me in the fire. If it's, hey, you need to go home and I can't pay you, I'm going to answer that gnawing question in the back of your brain. Will this restaurant be open tomorrow? Do I have a job? I'll answer it for you right now. You do not have a job. Like, they are dying for us to lead them. We can't wishy-wash. We can't hide. I will also tell you this, and I experienced it. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a person. I watched that 100 to 200,000 people are going to die. It crushes me. It crushes me to see our industry in flames. I've never in my life seen anything like this. None of us have. But with that said, I can tell you there are days where I have my head so far up my rear end. I'm so down. I'm so sad. I watch the news and go, 1,000 people died yesterday. It's going to be 200,000 people die. We don't have enough ventilators. We don't have this. Bring on restaurant owners. I've had to let go of my people. I've closed, right? You watch social media and you see our friends who have their businesses go out of business because of this. And you just, I don't know, you feel bad. Now I'm going to tell you, I live by this, and I wholeheartedly believe this. As leaders in our business, you're allowed to have the one day that you feel bad about yourself. You can cry. You can eat your feelings. Heck, drink a stupor. Don't care what it is. You get one day. What we do the next day defines us. As an entrepreneur, what we do the next day defines us because our team is looking for us to lead. So it's a long answer to, do I lower my employees? Heck, I've got no problem as a leader. If you want to kumbaya it, everybody, we got a choice. Either I can let half of you go, and I've got to, and you keep your same wages, and I'm not going to tell you who I'm keeping, right? Or we can keep us all employed if I take you all down to minimum wage for the next 3 weeks. And oh, by the way, I'm waiting for a stimulus package. I might be able to, if I get the loan, I'll pay you back pay. I'll do whatever. Like, bring them in, lead. But I'm going to tell you, for the most part, I can't answer that question for you if I didn't know your company culture and what your employees are like. Like, are they chasing the dollar? My gut says if you had managers leave for the extra money, you're probably not going to be able to reduce the wage of your employees, because that's a culture. It started with them. They were the leaders of the shifts. Hope that makes sense. Anything else?
Nothing else. Everybody is bashful, or you explained it so thoroughly that no one has any question.
I put them to sleep. Hey, look, in closing, I truly mean this. If you need help, reach out to me. I've got a free evaluation on my website if you want to see the holes of systems. So when you come out of this, what you want to work on. When you go onto my site, when I get you the login, again, later today, if not tomorrow morning, if by tomorrow afternoon, if technology dings me, look at your junk folder. If you don't see a login, a welcome email, and then a username password to my site. There's a comment section each lesson. If you got a question for me, type in the question. I'll answer it. If you need to, on my site, I've got the ability for you to schedule a 30-minute call with me. I'm happy to help. Because right now, this is about making sure as many of us survive this as possible. And so I hope you found this valuable. Because I'm going to tell you, from an outsider, meaning not in your business, this is probably the most powerful stuff anybody can give you. Because this is your lifeline. This is truly your crystal ball to say, can I make it? Should I borrow that money? What do I need to do? And that's what I just gave you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, David. We appreciate you being here and walking us through the budget builder. And hopefully that makes everybody feel a little more in control of the next 12 weeks. All right.
Let's hope
Thanks,
so.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye.